The first chapter is He That Lunatic? A misty drizzle floated in the gloomy sky, falling on the devastated ruined walls, washing away the dark black blood stains that had long since dried up in vain. A young man with a longbow walked slowly in the rain, his slightly youthful face with a calmness that was incompatible with his age. The stars under his sword eyebrows seemed to be invisible to the abandoned vehicles in the road, straight moving forward, as if to look through the rain curtain to the unknown road ahead. Boom! There was a crisp gunshot. The young man frowned slightly. The young man paused. After hesitating, he changed his direction and walked towards the source of the gunshot. He knew that there was a small survival camp there, and probably less than 200 people lived there, and this gunshot only explained one thing: there was an attack by zombies. He guessed right. At the survival point 2 kilometers away from the young man, a life-and-death battle is underway, and according to the current situation, the term life-and-death mostly belongs to the zombie camp. Grass. Which idiot fired the gun? Do you want to attract more zombies? Just go out if you don't want to live, don't hurt me. A thin man stood on the fence surrounded by abandoned vehicles and construction waste. The small camp where he got up yelled at the wall. Skin monkey, aren't you tired of living? I'll just kill you with another scolding. A fat man poked his head out of the only solar-powered truck in the camp and cursed. The skinny monkey shrank his neck when he heard the words. He was in a panic just now. He forgot that only this fat grandson in the camp currently holds firearms. Other members of the expedition team with firearms have gone out looking for food and various supplies. Lu Jiang! Hurry up! Over there! Fatty Sun suddenly saw a zombie climbed up the fence and quickly shouted. Quick! I have a few more people here. This side is about to be broken. A middle-aged man of about 40 years old responded, piercing the head of the zombie who had just climbed the wall with his spear, and shouted loudly. Tao! I can't hold it anymore. Why isn't the expedition team coming back? They only went out yesterday, and they may not be able to come back today. We are done. Then what do we do? Let's run. We can't stop so many zombies. Run, Nima. Where are you going when you are surrounded? Die together. If you die, you will be free. The whole camp was in chaos. Look! There is someone there. The skinny monkey suddenly pointed outside the camp and shouted. Then he seemed to think of something and waved his hand and shouted, Help! We have a lot of supplies here. We will repay you for saving us. Yes. Save me, you saved me and I promised you everything. A pretty woman shouted. Save me and give you all my food. A ragged, yellow-faced man shouted. Save me. My father is XX. Then, when the other people in the camp heard the shouts of the skinny monkeys, they couldn't help but screamed, and made many promises that they might or might not be able to do, as if the person in front of them could easily eliminate the 200 who besieged them. More zombies. A lonely figure stood outside the camp. It was the immature teenager. He looked up at the group of zombies outside the camp, and then looked back at his quiver. It seemed that he was calculating the possibility of destroying these zombies. Soon he shook his head and sighed. It was obvious that there was a big gap between the 25 arrows in his quiver and the group of more than 200 zombies in front of him. When the teenager shook his head and sighed, he suddenly felt that the wound on his left foot began to throbbing again. He pulled up his trousers and looked down. There was a blackened wound on his ankle, which was a bite mark, and then he was speechless. With a wry smile, he raised his head and looked at the zombie in front of him again, muttering, It doesn't make any difference between a bite and a few bites, right? Forget it. One last fight with these ugly things, maybe you will be a group in the future, today maybe it's Wu Yangfeng's last battle. The young Wu Yangfeng stretched out his hand to take off the longbow behind him, and then drew 3 arrows on the bow. In a flash, the 3 arrows left the string, immersing the heads of 5 zombie size, 5, because 2 arrows hit 2 zombies at the same time. As Wu Yangfeng's hand kept waving, the arrows came out like locusts. In an instant, more than 20 arrows were all shot into the air. He hung up the longbow and stooped to pick up a glass bottle on the ground. Throw it in the air, then smash it with a fist. The entire camp became silent at this moment. Lu Jiang, holding a spear, looked down at the zombies with two heads nailed together by an arrow in front of him, and then turned to look at the more than 40 people lying around the camp. The zombie murmured, "Could it be, he is the lunatic?" A person's information came to his mind. Madman, whose real name is Wu Yangfeng, is the main member of the expedition team of the Green Island Survival Base, who is good at bows and arrows. Plap! A clear sound of glass shattering awakened Lu Jiang. He escaped from his reputation and found that Wu Yangfeng was retracting his fist, with his backhand drew a strangely shaped dagger from his waist, and he leaped forward. A zombie fell to the sky with a blood hole above his head. Only then did Lu Jiang discover that Wu Yangfeng's violent rapid shooting just now reduced the number of zombies besieging the camp by nearly 1/5, and all the zombies killed were the zombies nearest to the camp. Now only a dozen scattered zombies are still marching toward the camp, and the others are attracted by the crisp sound of Wu Yangfeng breaking the glass bottle. Speed solve these zombies, and then we copy from the back bread to kill those zombies. Lu Jiang muttered in a low voice. The two people around him looked at each other, but didn't move. Didn't you hear? I said hurry up. Lu Jiang was a little anxious, but when he was about to repeat, he felt something on the back of his head. Lu Jiang! Just stay with me, knowing that you, a bad guy, will come across from behind? Do you want to call back the zombies to kill us all? The gun in Fatty Sun's hand was pointed at the back of Lu Jiang's head, and the corner of his eyes pointed at the young man who had already started fighting with the zombies and whispered. Then he looked at the dozen zombies who were about to break through the camp wall, his eyes rolled. Skinny monkey! Take a few people and watch these zombies. You can't let them in. In addition, tell the people in the camp that they don't make any noise if they want to survive. The skinny monkey nodded lightly and took a few people there. After Lu Jiang heard what Fatty Sun said, he moved in his heart, and then he took his spear and stood up straight. What are you doing? Fatty Sun was nervous. Humph! You don't go. I'll do it myself. Lu Jiang snorted coldly. Dare you? Fatty Sun pushed the gun forward. Haha! I don't know if I can recruit zombies in the past, but I know that as long as you shoot those zombies, you will shoot them. Lu Jiang glanced back at Fatty Sun contemptuously and then jumped. Under the wall, he ran towards the group of zombies who were besieging the young man without hesitation. Brother Jiang! A young man in his 20s watched Lu Jiang leave, and he couldn't help but anxiously shouted. Shut up! If you want to go, just jump off, don't stand here and shout. Fatty Sun said with a grim look. The young man stared blankly at Lu Jiang while he was running, clenched his fists tightly with both hands, his whole body trembled, but in the end, he let go of his fists and sat on the ground like a flat ball, crying silently. Stand up! At this time, the group of zombies besieging Wu Yangfeng has been reduced by almost half, but Wu Yangfeng's movements still maintained agility. Quickly wandering among the group of zombies, the dagger flew up and down in his hands, and the zombies were constantly like wheat harvested by him. Ah! I can't hold on anymore, it's not what I expected. Isn't it true that no one will come out to help? If I die here, my plan will be over? There are too many zombies, and I must not be able to share them. That's right. Wu Yangfeng thought helplessly, and again waved his dagger to bring down the two zombies. Lu Jiang finally arrived, and he was secretly shocked when he saw less than 100 zombies in front of him. More than 200 zombies were actually solved half by this boy with bows and daggers, but the current situation of this boy is definitely not optimistic. Although it seems that he is interspersed among the zombies group, it seems that these zombies are not threatening to him, but as long as he is delayed by any one of the zombies for even half a second, the zombies that come up immediately will drown him directly. He would not even have room to struggle, he would be torn to pieces directly. Lu Jiang took a deep breath and suddenly shouted, "Kill!" The spear in his hand pierced the head of a zombie in front of him with the back facing him, and then Lu Jiang continued to yell at the young man. Ran to the rear right. As Lu Jiang ran and shouted, more and more zombies were attracted by Lu Jiang, and Yu Yangfeng's pressure suddenly decreased, but Yu Yangfeng looked at Lu Jiang who was surrounding him and the long line of zombies chasing behind him. A smile appeared on his face suddenly, and then, the dagger in his hand swung even faster. Lu Jiang feels that his steps are getting heavier and heavier. He is not a strengthener, just an ordinary person with a little stronger individual strength. The previous battles have consumed too much of his physical strength. He is only encouraging and supporting, because he knows as long as he stops, he will become food for the zombies behind. It's almost done? No. How long can I hold on for a while? Has that lunatic killed all the zombies surrounding him? Can he run away? Lu Jiang thought while panting. Then, I don't know when he has stopped yelling because he really has no strength. Pump! I didn't know what he was stepping on. Lu Jiang's legs softened and he fell on the ground. He used all his strength to turn himself over. Then, he saw a zombie leaping towards him, ferocious. His face grew bigger and bigger in his eyes, and then his eyes went dark and he lost consciousness. Chapter 2. Finally there is one more person. Yu Yangfeng grabbed his left hand, and the zombie that rushed towards Lu Jiang stopped in the air. It was pinched by Yu Yangfeng's neck and could not move for a while, so he could only wave its arms in vain. Slowly retracting his arms, turning the head of the zombie to face his face, Yu Yangfeng looked at the zombie very seriously. Behind him, zombies lying all over the floor. I won't look like this in the future. After looking at each other for a while, Yu Yangfeng sighed in frustration. I knew I should prepare some military camouflage, and at least no one would recognize me in the future. The dagger in his right hand drew a half circle in front of him, puff. Opened a hole in the zombie's left temple, and then threw it away. Yu Yangfeng tilted his head to look at the unconscious Lu Jiang and muttered. This kind of person can live to this day? It's really a miracle. Hey! Is this fool one of yours? Yu Yangfeng shouted towards the direction of the camp. In the camp, Fatty Sun and Skinny Monkey glanced at each other and were about to talk. The young man who was sitting on the ground crying just now replied loudly, yes. It's ours. Then he jumped off the wall and ran over. While shouting, Brother Chiang! Brother Chiang! Are you okay? Why are there such people everywhere? I just lie on the ground and ask if there is anything wrong. You watched too much TV series before. Yu Yangfeng took a black line and pulled Lu Jiang up against his shoulders, and moved away. Walked towards the camp. This idiot! Fatty Sun gritted his teeth. You can't let this kid into the camp. We didn't save him just now. It's hard to guarantee that he won't retaliate against us. It seems that our trouble is more than this. The Skinny Monkey said with some chaff, that guy was bitten. I saw it on the wall just now, on his left arm. Hey! Fatty Sun jumped up, everyone is ready to fight. That guy was bitten. The young man who had jumped off the wall and was running towards Yu Yangfeng also heard these words. The running footsteps stopped abruptly, and then he backed back with a look of fear. Unexpectedly, a somersault fell to the ground, and then he crawled. Went back. Yu Yangfeng shook his head. He felt that the people in this survival camp were all weird, and the fact that this kind of camp could survive in this cruel apocalypse was a little comfort to those who were still alive. Stop! Don't go any further! Fatty Sun shouted when Yu Yangfeng was about 10 meters away from the camp gate. Yu Yangfeng stopped and looked up at Fatty Sun on the fence. You got bitten. Bitten by those zombies. The Skinny Monkey screamed while standing beside Fatty Sun, pointing at Yu Yangfeng. Yu Yangfeng nodded, and casually looked at his left arm that was bitten just now. do I need to thank you for reminding me? Has he been bitten? Fatty Sun pointed the gun at Lu Jiang on Wu Yangfeng's shoulder, but when he saw Wu Yangfeng's eyes instantly getting cold, he quickly hid the gun behind his back. Hey! Seeing Fatty Sun put away the gun, Wu Yangfeng stopped worrying about it. After he put down Lu Jiang gently, he straightened his body and looked at Lu Jiang and whispered, "What about him? Luckier than me." After speaking, Wu Yangfeng went straight to the side of the wall, possessed and retracted his arrows one by one into the quiver behind him. When Wu Yangfeng walked towards the wall, everyone in the camp held their breath and stared at Wu Yangfeng. They all breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that he had just retracted his arrow. "Look!" The thin monkey slapped Fatty Sun with his elbow, snarled at him, and whispered. Fatty Sun looked in the direction indicated by the thin monkey and swallowed, "Good knife." The skinny monkey showed Fatty Sun the dagger that Wu Yangfeng used to kill the zombies just now. He did not put it away at this time, still holding it in his left hand. Just now he slaughtered more than 100 zombies with this dagger, but now this one the dagger remained unchanged, and the sharp blade was not dripping blood. Wu Yangfeng didn't greet everyone in the camp after putting away his arrows, he turned around and was about to leave. "Wait!" Fatty Sun hurriedly shouted. Wu Yangfeng stopped. You were bitten, right?" Fatty Sun asked, squeezing the pistol behind his back. "Didn't the guy next to you tell you?" Wu Yangfeng did not turn around. "Then, you should." Fatty Sun said tentatively. "Yes. So next time you see me, be careful. Because I might bite you." Wu Yangfeng finished speaking and looked back at Fatty Sun's teeth. "I didn't mean that, I mean." Fatty Sun wiped the cold sweat from his head, "In that case, your equipment." "Hey!" Wu Yangfeng turned around like a whirlwind, and looked at Fatty Sun coldly, "You mean my equipment is useless for me?" Fatty Sun's face twitched stiffly, and he barely squeezed out a smiling face, but he didn't say a word, and came directly with a default. Looking down at the dagger in his hand, Wu Yangfeng smiled suddenly, "If I think so after being bitten. Humph! I was bitten before saving you, if I leave my equipment in my own camp, what will be the result of you now? Impossible! I clearly saw that you were bitten while saving us just now, don't want to lie to us." The thin monkey suddenly shouted. Wu Yangfeng made only one movement, raising his left leg and pulling up his trousers. All the people closed their mouths because they all saw the wound, but at this moment, Wu Yangfeng looked at the thin monkey and smiled, "You also said that I was bitten when I was saving you." "That's right. One bite, but it makes no difference to me." After speaking, Wu Yangfeng looked at the people standing on the fence and said, "I remember when you asked me to save you just now, it seemed that you would be rewarded after I saved you? It seems that there is food or something, and now I can give it to you. I am." Hearing this, Fatty Sun immediately trembled, then immediately raised a hand and said as if swearing, "No. I didn't call you to save me. I definitely didn't, let alone promised anything." "Oh." Wu Yangfeng raised his head and made a clear expression, "Who said that? I remember saying that there is food. Give me the food quickly. I'm leaving." "No, no one called you. You must have heard it wrong, because you were bitten, so hallucinations occurred." The skinny monkey said in a hurry, "Ha! By the way, you were bitten. You were bitten before, so no matter whether you save us or not, you will become that thing, so we don't need to be grateful to you, and you need food too. It's useless, but we will starve to death for giving you food. Are you going to take us to bury you?" With the reminder of the thin monkey, the people who shouted for help just now seemed to finally wake up. Yes. He would have died, no matter whether he saved us or not, so we don't need to be grateful to him. These people obviously ignore that they didn't mean to thank and repay the boy who just saved them. Yet, didn't you harm people? It wasn't us that caused you to be bitten, and you won't find us if you want revenge. Yet, This young man looks pretty good, why is he thinking so viciously? It's fine if he wants to die, he even wants to drag us together. Yes. It's a scumbag. Hey! I advise you to get out. The farther you go, the better. Knowing that you were bitten by a zombie, we didn't kill you right away, it's a shame for you. Wu Yangfeng quietly listened to these people's babblings. He didn't feel angry, but felt sad. These people in front of him are really not worth the effort to rescue them. Maybe they will become kind after they become zombies. Originally, he didn't expect his actions to be rewarded. In the last 6 months of his life, he has seen the darkness of human nature, crossing rivers, breaking bridges, and falling into rocks. He has experienced too many things. He just feels that the group of people in front of him are really real. It's stupid, don't they see that they are enhancers? Wu Yangfeng slowly raised his head, expressionless, his eyes looked like 1,000 years of Xianbing coldly at the people who were chattering on the wall. Those guys who were happily pointing at Wu Yangfeng to make irresponsible remarks suddenly quieted down one by one, and soon they realized their mistakes. The boy who seemed harmless to humans and animals in front of them had just been killed by their own power. With more than 200 zombies enough to destroy their survival camp, that is to say, he is a strengthener. Moreover, at least a level 2 or above enhancer, at least his ability to kill more than 40 zombies in an instant is not what the level 1 enhancer in his camp can do. And the most important thing is, now that people's arrows have been picked up and put into the quiver, aren't we now begging them to be targets for him? Thinking of the young man's first arrow that was as stunning as a storm, everyone's heart was chilling. Wu Yangfeng was very entangled at this time. He wanted to kill the people in front of him who were purely a waste of resources, but he hesitated when he thought that there were already a few human beings. The most important thing is that he has not killed anyone. Of course, zombies cannot be regarded as human beings. Inadvertently, Wu Yangfeng's gaze swept over Lu Jiang, who was still lying unconscious on the ground. At this time, Lu Jiang looked peaceful, as if he was asleep. At this time, Wu Yangfeng finally had a hint of warmth in his gaze. Oh! Forget it. At last there is another person in this camp who can be called a human. Wu Yangfeng sighed in his heart. He didn't look at the people on the fence with horrified expressions, but turned and left. In the drizzle, the figure looks so bleak. Looking at his back, Fatty Sun's face kept twitching. It was obvious that his heart was fighting fiercely. The gun in his hand was raised several times and put down several times. It wasn't until Wu Yangfeng's figure completely disappeared from their sight that Fatty Sun sat on the ground like a frustrated ball, crying with a sad face. Chapter 3 This is, the rhythm that made me commit suicide? Like Fatty Sun, many people in the camp collapsed to the ground feebly. They were all afraid. I just let go of a word in front of a strengthener who could pinch himself to death by reaching out his hand? He can kill so many zombies, so he can kill us. Right. The thin monkey muttered. Sure. More than 200 zombies alone, wait. More than 200 zombies? Haha. We are rich. Fatty Sun suddenly remembered something halfway through his words, and jumped up excitedly. Scream, okay. Stand up fucking, all go out, bring all the zombies back, no one is allowed to fall, more than 200 zombies. That dying person doesn't need the strengthening fluid in the brains of these zombies, we but need. The people in the camp just woke up like a dream, yes. These dead zombies have strengthening liquid in their brains. As long as they have enough strengthening liquid, they may become strengtheners, so they swarmed out to fight for the corpses of those zombies. Fuck me, remember. Only the zombies are allowed to be carried. Who dares to steal the strengthening liquid, I will shoot him. Fatty Sun's shout completely extinguished the thoughts in other people's hearts. Come here, skinny monkey. Fatty Sun waved to the skinny monkey. After saying a few words in his ear, the skinny monkey looked at the direction where Wu Yangfeng disappeared and hesitated, until Fatty Sun gave him the gun in his hand. Only then reluctantly nodded, and ran towards the direction where Ouyang Feng had left. Ouyang Feng walked aimlessly, he didn't know where he was going, he didn't know what he should do, he didn't even know how long he could live. The wound on his ankle was completely unconscious, but it was on his left arm. The new injury is very painful. Haha. You won't hurt for at most 1 day. I have experience with this. Ouyang Feng laughed at the wound on his left arm and laughed. At this time, Ouyang Feng is walking in a jungle. Since the extinction fire came, the plants have also changed. The growth rate has accelerated a lot, and they have grown bigger and bigger, and there have been people who were entangled by vines, live and die, and finally become a corpse. Therefore, the current jungle is also a forbidden zone for humans, and most people will not easily go deep. Of course, Ouyang Feng will not care about these. For a person who may fall to the ground next and become a zombie when he stands up again, this world no longer exists. What's dangerous? Moreover, zombies are not afraid of anything, and he may become one of them immediately, so he can't embarrass the zombies, right? Ouyang Feng wandered aimlessly while thinking wildly. He even felt that he had become a zombie. A wanderer. Wanderers are what humans call the lowest level zombies, because they are very slow, and most of the time is wandering around. Hey! What a big tree! Ouyang Feng looked up at the towering giant tree in front of him. It looked like an ancient tree that had grown for thousands of years, but Ouyang Feng knew that maybe this tree it just broke ground a month ago. Looking down at his left foot has already begun to lose consciousness gradually. Ouyang Feng sighed, that's it. Ouyang Feng climbed up the big tree, sat down on a branch almost 5 meters above the ground, leaned back against the big tree, looked up at the dense canopy, and climbed an ant on a leaf in front of him. Attracting Ouyang Feng's attention, Ouyang Feng stared at the crawling ants blankly. A gust of wind blew, the leaves shook, and the ant fell. Ouyang Feng hurriedly reached out to catch it, then carefully placed the ant on the trunk in front of him, and then continued to watch it crawling around, as if, in this world only him and this ant are left. I don't know how long it took, Ouyang Feng suddenly moved, and a roar belonging to a zombie came out of his mouth. Oh! Bang! The gunshot sounded, and Ouyang Feng's body fell from the tree with the gunshot, and fell heavily to the ground, lying there motionless. Haha! It's finally changed. I've been waiting for so long, bah! The monkey stood up from a bunch of unknown plants not far away, the muzzle of the pistol in his right hand was still smoking. Aren't you very good? NND. Now that's a good one? Damn! What a great booster! Grandpa killed you like he wasn't a booster. The thin monkey stepped forward and looked down at Ouyang Feng and said arrogantly. The thin monkey said that he bent down and prepared to take off the bough behind Ouyang Feng, who knew it suddenly became protruding. Ouyang Feng, who should have been dead, suddenly stood up, and his right hand swept across the thin monkey's arm with a knife in his right hand. With the thin pistol the monkey's half amputation flew out. Ouyang Feng slowly got up from the ground, watching the skinny monkey panting heavily. His body had begun to weaken, and now he was basically an ordinary person. The skinny monkey clutched his severed arm and stared at Ouyang Feng in disbelief and said, didn't your corpse changed? Why? Ouyang Feng smiled, I just wanted to learn the language of zombies in advance. I didn't expect to lead you out. Are you following me to help me collect the corpse? The thin monkey was about to speak, and suddenly he was stunned, his expression on his face changed constantly, and then his eyes turned to the dagger in Ouyang Feng's hand, staring at the dagger firmly. Ouyang Feng looked at his dagger strangely, then raised his head to look at the skinny monkey, wondering if this guy is crazy? Ha 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 ha! The skinny monkey suddenly looked at Ouyang Feng and laughed wildly, do you think I'm stupid? It's the blood center, can't you just talk about the heart? You think I will obediently let you insert that thing into my heart inside? I babble. Idiot. After finishing talking, the skinny monkey pointed at Wu Yangfeng's dagger with his hand, and sipped in disdain, boy. It looks like you haven't changed, but you are no longer good? Otherwise, you won't use conspiracy to calculate me, ha 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 ha. Wu Yangfeng heard it inexplicably, but he didn't bother to pay attention to him. Although his body was indeed weak, it was not a problem to deal with the injured little man in front of him. Why did he come out with conspiracy? The skinny monkey had been staring at Wu Yangfeng. Wu Yangfeng's expression was all in his eyes. He hesitated. Then he looked at his half-lost right arm, suddenly as if he had made a decision. With a grim face, he rushed towards Wu Yangfeng, yelling hysterically, "Come on! Come if you want to kill me! Go here! I don't believe you really dare to kill me!" While shouting, he pointed at his heart with the only left finger. Wu Yangfeng looked at the skinny monkey getting closer and closer, looking at him in a somewhat semi-crazy state, frowning. He didn't kill anyone, but it didn't mean he didn't dare to kill. As you wish. Wu Yangfeng raised the dagger in his hand and stabs the skinny monkey's heart that is already close. When he sees that the dagger is about to pierce his heart, the skinny monkey's eyes were almost crazy. There was a glimmer of expectation. Wu Yangfeng also noticed. He unknowingly looked at the dagger in his hand. Suddenly he was shocked, his eyes bursting brightly, and when the dagger was about to pierce the skinny monkey, he abruptly took the dagger and his body swivel and kicked the thin monkey out. Wu Yangfeng quickly put away the dagger, took off the longbow behind his backhand, and in the blink of an eye an arrow had already flown out, puff. The thin monkey who had just turned around had an arrow in his eyebrow, and his face fell unwillingly. Go down! Hey! After this series of actions, Wu Yangfeng felt that he was getting weaker and weaker. He knew that when all his power was lost, it might be him. Bang! Wu Yangfeng sat under the tree with his back leaning against the tree. He had no strength to climb to the tree anymore. Wu Yangfeng put the bough next to him, pulled out the dagger, and looked at it carefully. The reason why he retracted the dagger was on the one hand because of the expectant eyes of the thin monkey, and on the other hand, it was the blood stains on the dagger. This dagger was accidentally obtained by Wu Yangfeng after the end of the world. I thought it was good looking and stayed with me. I have used it to kill a lot of zombies today. Let alone rescue the camp just now, I use at least this killed hundreds of zombies with the dagger. But Wu Yangfeng has never seen the blade of this dagger ever stained with blood. This is why Wu Yangfeng likes this dagger so much. Unlike the others in the team, the weapon in the hand of a zombie is covered with it. The brain plasma of the zombies and the purple-black viscous blood were simply disgusting. But now the dagger in Wu Yangfeng's hand still has some bright red blood, which was left when the thin monkey's arm was cut off. Wu Yangfeng tried to wipe the dagger on his clothes a few times, and when he looked again, he found that the blood on the dagger had been wiped off. It's no different from an ordinary dagger. Wu Yangfeng muttered, then raised his head to the sky and sighed, it should be soon, right? No. Wu Yangfeng suddenly remembered the skinny monkey's previous abnormality, and it only started after being scratched by a dagger. Conspiracy, blood center, heart, blood, is it? Wu Yangfeng sat up abruptly, placed the dagger in front of him and looked at it again. He remembered that this dagger had not been used to injure people since he got it, which means it was the first time that this dagger was stained with human blood. Hey! I don't have anything to fear anyway, just verify it. Wu Yangfeng waved his hand and pierced the dagger into his intact right leg. Wu Yang snorted in pain because of too much force and piercing too deeply, but immediately his expression solidified, and the person froze there like a statue. Applicant number 3 is detected, identity verification is in progress, identity verification is passed, please insert Apocalypse into the blood hub to start the recognition ceremony. A neutral voice like electronic synthesis sounded in Wu Yangfeng's mind. Wu Yangfeng stayed there, smiling bitterly after a while. No wonder that kid said what conspiracy and trickery, haha. The blood hub? Is it the heart? Want me to insert this into the heart? Wu Yangfeng pulled out the dagger stuck in his leg. As expected, it was covered with his own blood. He looked at the half-meter long and nearly 3 centimeter wide blade and murmured, "This is so, I want the rhythm that made me suicide." Chapter 4 I don't seem to be dead? Wu Yangfeng looked at the dagger and looked at him, and suddenly laughed, "Ha ha ha ha. Isn't that scary even if the little guy dares me? And this is for me to insert my heart, and it won't break my original plan." After speaking, Wu Yangfeng looked serious. He pointed the dagger at his heart, and then concentrated his mental power to a high degree. After Wu Yangfeng was bitten, he has always had a plan. Instead of committing suicide by blasting his head like others, he was about to become a zombie. Because he had received mental training before, he wanted to try to see how he became a zombie. Can you keep your thoughts? Before, a member of their team was bitten and concealed it. Later, after becoming a zombie, he maintained his sanity for about 5 minutes. Since then, Wu Yangfeng has this idea. Now since it is the heart, it doesn't matter. He will still become a zombie after death. After Wu Yangfeng was ready, he took a deep breath, with a smile on his face, and then forcefully pierced the dagger into his chest. A tearing pain came immediately. This huge pain was not only in the part of the heart, but quickly spread throughout his body. Wu Yangfeng patiently endured it and tried hard to keep himself awake. At this moment, the electronically synthesized sound came again. Apocalypse enters the blood hub and begins to transform the essence and blood. The essence and blood are transformed, and the recognition ceremony begins. The master recognition is successful. Congratulations! You have become the second-generation Apocalypse Hunter, and the status of candidate number 1 and number 2 is cancelled. Before death, other people cannot use the Apocalypse. A foreign virus has been detected in the body of the Apocalypse Hunter, and it is being cleared. The removal is complete. The Apocalypse Hunter has been detected to have a trauma, and he is being treated. Healing is over. Excessive impurities in the body of the Apocalypse Hunter have been detected, and they are being cleaned up. The Apocalypse Hunter has reached the fusion standard and started fusion. The fusion is complete. The above energy consumption is 13 points, and the remaining energy is 18 points. Wu Yangfeng was dizzy by this string of electronic sounds, and he didn't react until the electronic sounds disappeared. He didn't seem to be dead. Looking down at his chest, his right hand still stupidly maintained the posture when he pierced the dagger into the heart, but the dagger was gone, and there were no scars on his chest. Suddenly, Wu Yangfeng saw that his body was dark and greasy. Whether it's hands or chest. Wu Yangfeng hurriedly jumped up, and then found that the perception of his left leg had recovered, and the right leg he had stabbed before was completely healed. He moved his body casually, and sighed, "It seems that this apocalypse still ruined me. Zombie project." But soon he stopped worrying about his failure to become a zombie, because he has more important things to do. Take a bath. Maybe it was the reason why some apocalypse cleaned up the impurities in his body. Wu Yangfeng estimated that his face was as dark as his hands and chest, making him uncomfortable all over, and that Thin Monkey would be scared to death by him if he came to this time. No. That guy died, and he didn't even have the chance to become a zombie. If he really reappeared, Wu Yangfeng estimated that he was the one who was scared to death. Fortunately, it's relatively easy to find a pond in the jungle. Wu Yangfeng didn't take a long time to find one, but obviously Wu Yangfeng was more cautious when walking in the jungle than before. It seems that people are still courageous after being bitten by a zombie. Bigger. After searching for about half an hour, Wu Yangfeng finally found a pond for him to bathe in. It was said that the pond was actually a larger puddle, which was formed because of the rainfall in the past few days. Wu Yangfeng didn't care about 3 or 721, 3 under 5 divided 2, and then jumped off. However, after washing for a while, he found a problem. The dark thing on his body contained grease and it was more difficult to clean. Yang Feng simply took out the dagger. "Where's the dagger?" Only then did Yang Feng remember that his dagger called Apocalypse seemed to have disappeared. I turned over the trousers on the side. The sheath was empty, and there was no inside the clothes. My body was even more. As soon as Yang Feng lowered his head, he realized that there was an extra tattoo on his chest. The pattern was exactly the same as the missing dagger, but the size was much smaller. Couldn't it be that dagger that came here? But how do you take this down? Yang Feng just thought of this when something suddenly appeared in his hand. It was the missing Apocalypse dagger. Yang Feng was startled, and the hand holding the dagger subconsciously waved it. The dagger just passed in front of little Yang Feng, bringing up a few black threads. Fortunately, Yang Feng doesn't have any special emotions now, and there are no beautiful women around him, otherwise practicing into the sunflower collection is just around the corner. Yang Feng looked at the dagger carefully, then looked down at his chest, and found that the tattoo was still there, but the dagger actually appeared in his hands. Apocalypse! Yang Feng screamed tentatively at the dagger. There was no one here anyway, and it wouldn't be a shame if he didn't get an answer. Apocalypse Hunter! What's the order? The electronic synthesis sound echoed. Is there really a reaction? Fortunately, Yang Feng had heard this sound before, so that he would not throw away the dagger. The Apocalypse was born to serve the Apocalypse Hunters. The electronic synthesis sound does not contain a trace of emotion. Then who are you? I am the Apocalypse, and you are holding me in your hand. Then what are you? A creature or? I'm not a creature, I'm just a dagger. Talking dagger? Yes. Yang Feng was frustrated. After asking for a long time, he didn't ask anything, but he didn't intend to ask any more. A young man stood naked in the puddle and asked about a dagger. He couldn't think about it. So Yang Feng simply took the dagger to move his body up, down, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right and left. No matter whether it was dirt or hair, it was wiped clean, even the hair, and little Yang Feng did not let go. Then Yang Feng picked up his clothes and threw away the underwear that had been stained with black dirt before. He only wore the clothes outside. Then he found a big tree and jumped up. He had too many questions to ask. Up. Not to mention, just say that he was just a second-tier enhancer before. Although it is considered to be more powerful in the second tier, it is still the second tier, but only after he took a shower and put on his clothes did he realize how he can be considered a third tier. The enhancer of the order. After climbing as high as possible, Yang Feng found a more comfortable position and sat down, thinking, what should I ask first? Anything can be asked. It's just that I'm only a first-level Apocalypse, and I can't provide much information. Apocalypse's voice suddenly sounded, and the unsuspecting Yang Feng almost fell off the tree. Can you hear what I was thinking? Yang Feng did not speak this time, just thinking in his heart. Yes. As long as you think about me, I can receive it. Now I don't communicate with you by voice, but through brain waves. Tian Kai said. Hey. Sounds cool, hey. Yang Feng muttered to himself, and then began to ask in his heart, can you tell me about your functions first? Yes. Said Apocalypse, I am now a first-class Apocalypse, with 1 cubic meter of storage space, regardless of weight. Besides, I can also. An hour later, Yang Feng finally figured out what he got. In short, it was a cheat device that would make him an evolutionary. Every mutated creature contains substances that can make humans powerful, whether it is zombies, mutated animals, or even some plants, and the more powerful mutated creatures contain this substance in their bodies, the more advanced. For example, Wu Yangfeng himself became a strengthener because he used the strengthening liquid extracted from the brains of the lowest level zombies such as the Wanderer, but the success rate of using this strengthening liquid to be strengthened is poor, and it is strengthened. The direction is also completely random. It took Wu Yangfeng to use 25 potions to successfully strengthen and become a first-order potentiator, and this is his luck. Some people may not be able to succeed once using 100 potions, otherwise the potentiators will not be so rare. And if the first-order enhancer wants to strengthen again, he needs to hunt more advanced strengthening zombies to get the strengthening liquid in his brain, and the success rate is also horribly low. In addition to the enhancer, there are also the evolver, and the evolver is even more difficult. Even Wu Yangfeng just heard that some powerful mutant creatures or zombies would originally store the enhancement liquid after they die. Something like Dan. And if this thing is taken by the enhancer, it may be strengthened again, and there is a small chance of gaining a certain ability. This kind of strengthener with the ability is called an evolutionary, but this kind of evolutionary is even Wu Yangfeng. I have only seen it once, and it is said that he is only a first-order evolutionary. But this evolutionary is already quite strong. The strongest in the camp, the captain of the expedition, and the third-order power enhancer Liu Feng, is like a kindergarten kid facing the world heavyweight champion in front of him. Vulnerable. Fortunately, the evolutionary was just passing by and had no malice towards the camp, otherwise he might be able to destroy the camp where Wu Yangfeng was located. But now the apocalypse obtained by Wu Yangfeng can absorb these strengthening liquids and refine them into a 100% successful refining strengthening liquid, and only 10 parts of ordinary strengthening liquid are needed to refine one such strengthening liquid, which means that you only need to give with 10 parts of Wu Yangfeng strengthening liquid, he can 100% turn an ordinary person into a strengthener. Chapter 5 Goals 500 Zombies. Of course, if Apocalypse is only able to do this, it is not enough to make Wu Yangfeng an evolutionary. What makes Wu Yangfeng most excited or even ecstatic is that using 50 parts of this refined strengthening fluid can make Apocalypse into 100%. Chances to get the evolution fluid of the ability. And after the synthesis of this evolution fluid, Apocalypse can also detect the evolution direction of the evolution fluid before use, and even Apocalypse can also detect which person the evolution fluid is more suitable for use. Although it takes at least 500 ordinary strengthening liquids to synthesize such an evolution liquid, in other words, it takes at least 500 rogue zombies to be able to synthesize one, but this is enough to satisfy Wu Yangfeng. He even think about it later that you can become an evolution fluid merchant, specializing in selling evolution fluid. Okay. But I can only think about this. If you let others know that he has such a thing against this guy, I am afraid that the first thought is to kill people and steal treasures first, and Wu Yangfeng remembers clearly the last words of the Apocalypse when he merged with the Apocalypse. It was that before his death, others could not use the Apocalypse. In other words, if someone kills him, he can take Apocalypse as his own. This is not what Wu Yangfeng wants, and now Wu Yangfeng absolutely does not want to carry out his zombie plan. In addition, Tiankai also has a storage space with a volume of 1 cubic meter. Wu Yangfeng experimented, and it was similar to the space ring mentioned in the fantasy novels he had read before the end of the world. Only he could put things in or take out. No one else can see it. And the Apocalypse said that this space will increase as it is upgraded, but the specifics can only be known after the Apocalypse is upgraded. The current level 1 Apocalypse has only these two functions, plus it can treat Wu Yangfeng's injury and a dagger that can appear and disappear at any time, but it is enough for Wu Yangfeng. At least now he is no longer afraid of being bitten by a zombie. Of course, healing also comes at a price, that is, it needs to consume the energy points mentioned by Apocalypse during the previous integration of Apocalypse. The acquisition of energy points is very simple. In fact, it is a strengthening liquid. 10 portions of strengthening liquid can be converted into 1 energy point, 1 energy point. It can also be transformed into 10 strengthening liquids. There are still 18 energy points in the Apocalypse. As for the source of these energy points, according to the Apocalypse, although there was no recognition of the Master before, as long as the mutant creatures killed by the Apocalypse will absorb the strengthening liquid. This time Wu Yangfeng finally knew why the zombies he killed with a dagger before did not have the enhancement liquid. At that time, he was still wondering for a long time, because although not every zombie necessarily has the enhancement liquid, it is impossible to kill one enhancement liquid. Zombies don't have any strengthening fluid. Now of course he knows that the enhanced zombies have naturally become the energy points in the Apocalypse. Wu Yangfeng suddenly thought of the zombies he killed in the camp he rescued earlier. I don't know that those guys found that there were only 40 zombies in the 200 zombies. How depressed will be with more strengthening fluids. Fortunately, I recognize the Lord, or I will lose a lot of money. Wu Yangfeng remembered that he almost gave the Apocalypse to the skinny monkey in a cold sweat. If he had not taken back the dagger at that time, I am afraid that the current Apocalypse hunter is the skinny monkey. And he is going to carry out his own zombie plan. Wu Yangfeng stood up and jumped down from the tree. At this moment, he was full of ambition. His first goal was 500 zombies. Not long after Wu Yangfeng left, a strangely shaped spaceship came to the top of the jungle, and shot a light curtain to cover the location where Wu Yangfeng was before. It took a long time before he took it back. Then, the spacecraft on board, after a few flashes of light in Shandong, it flew upwards suddenly, and disappeared into the sky in a blink of an eye. After walking out of the jungle, Wu Yangfeng thought about it carefully and then strode in one direction. Now there are 18 energy points in the Apocalypse, and 32 energy points are needed to synthesize evolution liquid. In other words, at least 320 zombies should be killed. This is not an easy task. Don't look at the fact that Wu Yangfeng killed more than 200 zombies in one go. It was based on the fact that he had already been bitten. Otherwise, someone will rush into the zombie group and fight the zombies unless the brain gets water. Although Apocalypse can heal zombie bites, the price is 10 energy points, which means that if one bite 100 zombies killed for nothing. Moreover, Tiankai also warned Wu Yangfeng that its treatment can only be used as an emergency. The more bites, the more expensive the treatment. It is likely that a treatment will cost hundreds of energy points. Wu Yangfeng dismissed the idea of taking risks. He simply pretends that Apocalypse does not have this function, so he decided his direction after thinking for a long time. He is a member of the expedition team, and he still knows the terrain and the distribution of zombies nearby. He is currently traveling in a small village called Wukan, which is about 5 kilometers away from here, and about 10 kilometers away from the town where his camp is located. When their team came here before, they judged that there was nothing in the village. So I didn't go in. He remembered that there were about 300 zombies in Wu village, and all of them were wanderers, and there were not a single enhanced zombies, so they didn't clean up the zombies here at that time, because the wanderers' enhancement liquid was not available to them. Usefulness. What? You said you can take it back to other ordinary people? The strengthening fluid will soon lose its effect after it leaves the zombie's brain, so basically all enhancers extract the zombie fluid after killing the zombie by themselves, and even if they can take it back, no one will risk their lives to help others. Since he is already a Tier 3 enhancer, and Wu Yangfeng's strengthening direction is still speed agile, so the 5-kilometer road only took more than half an hour to arrive. After arriving near the village, Wu Yangfeng first quietly shot and killed a few animals. The zombies that came outside were carefully observed afterwards. Under the gloomy sky, a dilapidated archway stands at the entrance of the village. The sign on the archway that says Wukun welcomes you has fallen off one side, gently swinging in the wind, appearing tottering, scattered zombies in the village wandering around again, vaguely there was a roar in the middle. About half an hour later, Wu Yangfeng finally confirmed again that there were no enhanced zombies in the village, and they were all wanderers, and then began the corpse destruction operation. He first took off his bow and arrow and prepared for a long-range attack. He has already asked Apocalypse. After shooting the zombie with a bow and arrow, inserting the Apocalypse into the head of the zombie has the same effect as killing the zombie with the Apocalypse. In other words, no matter who killed the zombie, as long as the zombie's strengthening fluid is still there, use Apocalypse to absorb. It's just that the time in between cannot be too long, otherwise the strengthening liquid will evaporate. Wu Yangfeng deliberately asked about the interval time, and the answer given by Tiankai was that it could not exceed 3 days. Wu Yangfeng almost fainted. This is not too long? Wu Yangfeng first came down to the archway at the entrance of the village and shot and killed several zombies dangling around a THRESTRE building at the entrance of the village. There are only 2 zombies in the building, and they look like old couples. At this time, I probably don't need to respect the old and love the young. I went straight up to solve it twice, then climbed on the roof, and then wiped out all the zombies in the line of sight, and then continued to make up for the knife. With such reciprocation, Wu Yangfeng was busy alone. It was a joy. This is why he chose here. The zombies are scattered, unlike the zombies in the town. They come in a group. In fact, as long as the number of the lowest level wanderers does not reach a certain scale, don't say he is a booster, even if it is. An ordinary strong man can also handle several. But once the number comes up, it will be miserable. These guys are not afraid of death. No matter how you kill, once you get close, as long as one entangles you, there is only one result: being overwhelmed by them. Wu Yangfeng pushed forward slowly in this way, and soon killed more than 100 zombies, but the next thing was his headache. The scattered zombies around had all been removed, and the remaining 200 zombies were basically gathered together. It is impossible to kill as easily as before. Wu Yangfeng carefully observed the terrain. The place where the zombies gathered was a church. Maybe they were worshipping here when the end of the day began, or they came here instinctively after becoming a zombie. Wu Yangfeng once wanted to use the bamboo here to make more bamboo arrows, and then use the slow movement of zombies to fly kites, but he immediately gave up this idea. There are enough bamboos to shoot zombies, but after all, not a game. His physical strength is limited. The reason why there are only 25 arrows in his quiver is because this is already the limit of his continuous bowing. If he keeps a few more times, his arm may be scrapped. This also includes his sometimes 2 or 3 arrows are sent together. Generally speaking, his arms will be sore and weak when he opens the bow 20 times in a row, and even his melee ability will be greatly affected. As for the use of Apocalypse, have you seen anyone flying a kite with a dagger? If one road is not possible, he will look for the next one. After looking around the surrounding environment, Wu Yangfeng found that the houses in this village are basically THRESTRE small buildings, and the styles are almost the same. After thinking hard for a while, his eyes suddenly shined. An idea came to his mind, and he immediately ran into a house and started to get busy. Wu Yangfeng just ran in and out and arranged it in several adjacent small buildings for a long time, then stopped to clap his hands, nodded in satisfaction, and then tilted his head to think carefully for a while. Finally, after confirming that there was no omission, he took off his bow and walked towards the zombies. This time he walked close enough, until the zombies found him. He opened his bow and set arrows. The boom, 3 arrows flew out together, and 7 zombies were directly strung together. This is his special skill. He shoots 3 at a time. Arrows and extremely accurate. Wu Yangfeng shot all the arrows out in one breath, then dropped his bow and turned his head and ran, dragging a long line of zombies behind him. When he shot an arrow just now, he deliberately shot only one side of the zombies, reducing the width of the zombie team, so that his follow-up plan can proceed smoothly. Chapter 6: The Deadly Game. Wu Yangfeng went straight to the small building he had chosen long ago without looking back, and then stood at the door of the small building, waiting for the arrival of the zombies. This small building has no yard, and Wu Yangfeng is standing on the first floor. At the door, the gate was originally 2, but he locked one, so that the entrance was half smaller, and there were only 2 zombies that could enter at the same time. When the zombie arrived, one of them left the team and walked a little forward. Without a word, Ouyang Feng rushed out to shine its head with Apocalypse, and then immediately ran back to the door. After that, the first few zombies that approached all fell under the attack of Apocalypse, and they also formed obstacles across the door, causing the zombies behind to fall directly in front of Ouyang Feng. Of course, Ouyang Feng would not be polite. Take it all. It's just that after killing dozens of them, Ouyang Feng began to prepare to run, because the zombies behind had already piled up, and they couldn't run away if they didn't run. Ouyang Feng turned around and ran upstairs, before reaching the stairs. He heard wow. Behind him, the door he had locked fell down. Ouyang Feng didn't seem to hear it, and ran to the 3rd floor in one breath. He didn't plan to kill the zombies on the stairs. Although it was condescending, it seemed easier to kill the zombies, but it was easier for the zombies to catch their own feet. Once caught. After arriving on the 3rd floor, Ouyang Feng directly picked up a cotton coat prepared in advance and put it on the rope on the balcony. The other end of the rope was tied to the gate of the 1st floor of a small building next to him. Ouyang Feng was like a trapeze. Slid down. At this time, only a small part of the team of zombies entered the small building where Ouyang Feng was before, and the other half was still squeezed at the door. After landing, Ouyang Feng directly waved at the zombies outside and shouted, "Hi! Here!" The zombies who heard the sound were immediately attracted. Ouyang Feng continued to repeat the previous method. When he slid down from the 3rd small building, he ran back, because there were no zombies outside. After the zombies were finally cleaned up, Ouyang Feng slowly began to collect the spoils. What made him a little depressed was that when he slid to other houses, the zombies here did not know, and they still climbed one by one to 3. Later, when I saw Ouyang Feng down, he actually walked directly from the balcony on the 3rd floor. Although this has saved Ouyang Feng a lot of things, but there are a few unlucky ones who landed head first, and directly fell and broke their brains, and even the trophies of Ouyang Feng were gone. Apocalypse. How many energy points are there now? After collecting all of them, Ouyang Feng asked nervously. In addition, there are a total of 54 energy points before. Tian Kai's answer finally made Ouyang Feng a sigh of relief. Synthesize an evolution liquid immediately. Ouyang Feng said immediately, and he was a little trembling with excitement thinking that he could become an evolutionary soon. Okay. It's being synthesized. Apocalypse's voice will never contain a trace of emotion. In less than a minute, the voice of the Apocalypse sounded again, complete synthesis. Testing completed. After waiting for a while, I still didn't hear Apocalypse say the result. Ouyang Feng couldn't help being a little anxious. Apocalypse. How is the test result? This evolving fluid is biased towards the power type, not suitable for you, Apocalypse Hunter, do you use it? Damn! Ouyang Feng couldn't help but explode, and it took a long time to form a power type. Isn't this too unreliable? Ouyang Feng sat on the ground and stared at his shoes blankly. After a long time, Ouyang Feng stood up suddenly. Apocalypse. Give me evolution fluid. He wants to understand that the power type is the power type, no matter how it is also an evolutionary. The self-protection ability must be greatly improved. If you don't need this, you will hunt 500 zombies and know what will happen, and then you will synthesize this evolution fluid. After that, there are only 4 energy points in Apocalypse, and if a zombie bites during this period, even treatment is not enough. The evolution fluid is in the apocalyptic space. Tian Kai replied. Ouyang Feng hurriedly opened the apocalypse space and took out a small golden bottle. Ouyang Feng looked at it carefully, and then he wanted to open it and drink it. Wait! Apocalypse's voice came. What's the matter? Ouyang Feng stopped. After taking the evolution liquid, I will fall into a drowsiness for a while. Are you sure you want to take it here? Lost sleepy? How long? Wu Yangfeng was startled. Uncertain, the type of evolution fluid and the system of the user and the power of the abilities will affect this time. Generally speaking, the longer the better. I'll go. Wu Yangfeng hurriedly put the evolution liquid back into the apocalypse space, and then picked up the long bow on his back and started searching door to door in the village. He had to make sure that all the zombies in Wu village had been removed. As for putting the long bow on his back instead of putting it in the apocalypse space, it is because if he needs to use a bow and arrow in a battle, it is not a good thing to take it out of the space and be seen inexplicably appearing a bow in his hand. Besides, he was used to it a long time ago. Wu Yangfeng turned the village all over again, and found a few more slippery fish. After solving them easily, he looked at the church, and now there is nothing left to look inside, because the church door is closed. So he wasn't sure if there would be zombies inside. At this time, Wu Yangfeng hesitated. He didn't know whether he should ignore it for the time being, wait until he became an evolver before going in, or confirm the safety there now. It is definitely safer to go after the evolution, but what should I do if something comes out of Wei Yi when he falls into a drowsiness? This village was originally small, there were only more than 200 households in total, and even if there were zombies in it, there were definitely not many. Thinking of this, Wu Yangfeng slowly approached the church and stood in front of the church door. He took a breath, grabbed the handle on the door and pulled it hard, but the door didn't move. Hey! Wu Yangfeng froze for a moment, and continued to pull it a few times, but still couldn't open it. Wu Yangfeng was a little depressed. Although he belongs to the Agile Enhancer, he is an enhancer after all. In terms of strength, he is not comparable to ordinary people. Yes, I can't open these two doors now? Wu Yangfeng pulled his full force again, but still did not open. Wu Yangfeng was furious, raised his leg and hit the door with a kick. Bang! The door opened in response. It turned out that the door opened inward. Ahem! Wu Yangfeng looked at the left and right with a guilty conscience. Fortunately, no one was there. Looking at it, there were zombies, but there were only a dozen zombies, and there were no enhanced zombies. Such a small number is in the eyes of Wu Yangfeng. It is the energy point of movement. After rushing in and solving all of them, Wu Yangfeng took a look at the church. This is a church that can accommodate more than 200 people. It is a European-style dome building. The dome is made of transparent material, so the lighting is good, although it is cloudy now. The rows of benches fixed on the ground look very neat. Wu Yangfeng shook his head. He couldn't figure out why this small village had such a big church. When he turned around, he saw the huge cross facing the gate. With the crown of thorns on it, seemed to be using a looking at him with pity in his eyes. Okay. I am not a believer of you, and I am not here to seek your help. Wu Yangfeng walked a few steps and nodded and said, but I know you, you are Jesus, both a man and a god, and you can raise the dead. But... Wu Yangfeng gestured in the direction of the zombies that he had killed just now. Honestly, this method surprised me, or is this another way you judge us? Wu Yangfeng turned around, looked at the empty church, and murmured, compared to the flood, this may indeed be better. Okay. Wu Yangfeng turned around again to face the statue of Jesus. I know this is your site, but I want to sleep here. You should not object to it. The Bible doesn't say anything. Is it called God loves the world? So. Wow! The voice from the right interrupted Wu Yangfeng's chattering. Wu Yangfeng turned to look. There is a room on the left side of the church podium. Maybe it's the place where the priest lives, right? Wu Yangfeng walked to the door of the room. This time he learned to be clever. After unscrewing the handle, he first pulled it outwards and then pushed it in. The door still opened inwards. Wu Yangfeng smiled slightly. This room is not big. So he didn't think there was any danger inside. Wu Yangfeng opened the door generously, and was about to walk inside. A black shadow attacked him at an extremely fast speed. The unsuspecting Wu Yang style hurriedly turned to the right, and evaded in embarrassment. But there were still 2 blood stains on his left cheek. Before he could look at the wound, Wu Yangfeng quickly took off the longbow and handed it to his left hand, and then held Apocalypse in his hand. It was a black cat who attacked him. At this time, he was crouching on the ground about 6 meters away, a pair of blood red. His eyes were staring at Wu Yangfeng fiercely. Biochemical beast. Wu Yangfeng's heart sank, the most terrifying creature in the last days, and this cat is definitely one of them. Small in size, fast, and sharp claws and teeth are definitely the deadliest weapon. After confronting one person and one cat for a few minutes, the black cat finally couldn't bear it. It began to circle Wu Yangfeng. Unlike the zombies, the biochemical beasts were completely insane. Their previous hunting instincts still existed. Wu Yangfeng squatted, bowed his left hand with a knife in his right hand, and followed the movement of the black cat to change direction. He noticed that the black cat's gaze was mostly on the dagger in his right hand, as if it also knew this for it. The biggest damage is the same. After turning around twice, Wu Yangfeng began to feel bad. His left cheek had already started to feel a little numb. He knew that if such a confrontation continued, he might fall down without a black cat. However, taking the initiative to attack is a dead end. Even if Wu Yangfeng is an agile tier 3 enhancer, he is far from the black cat's opponent in terms of speed. The black cat is waiting for Wu Yangfeng to attack if he hasn't launched for so long. Attacking is death, waiting is also death, escape is even more impractical. For a while, Wu Yangfeng has already entered a mortal situation. Chapter 7 Doomsday Judgment. As time went by, Wu Yangfeng had been in a half-squatting posture. Even though his physical strength was far beyond ordinary people, he already felt a little strenuous, but the black cat on the opposite side had been slowly circling Wu Yangfeng, neither attacking nor leaving. Not even bidding. I don't know if it was his illusion, Wu Yangfeng actually saw a joking expression on the black cat's face. It can't go on like this cat is consuming my energy. Wu Yangfeng secretly said. Apocalypse. If I throw you out, can you return to my body by yourself? Wu Yangfeng thought in his heart. Yes. But no more than 10 meters, the spiritual connection between us will be interrupted if more than 10 meters, and I will not be able to return to your body. Tian Kai answered. Okay. Then I will throw you out in a while, and then you will come back as soon as you pass the cat. Wu Yangfeng looked at the location of the black cat, which was about 5 meters away from him. Okay. Understood. Wu Yangfeng squeezed Apocalypse's hand tightly, and his body sank suddenly, making an attack that was about to attack. The black cat stepped and his blood-red eyes stared at the hand holding the dagger tightly. Swipe! With a wave of Wu Yangfeng's hand, Apocalypse took off and flew towards the black cat. Almost immediately after Apocalypse dropped his hand, the right hand quickly returned to the quiver behind and drew an arrow. At the same time, a trace of contempt flashed in the eyes of the black cat who saw the dagger flying over, and his body flashed to the side flexibly, and then without any pre-action, his body swept towards Wu Yangfeng like a black lightning. Before Wu Yangfeng's arrow came and hit the string, the black cat had arrived. In a hurry, Wu Yangfeng had to block it with his bow, and then grabbed the arrow with his right hand and inserted it against the black cat. The black cat's paw hooked on the bow body and easily escaped Wu Yangfeng's attack. Then the black cat slammed his hind feet on the bow, and the front paws caught Wu Yangfeng's face. Wu Yangfeng hurriedly lowered his head, but felt a sharp pain in his right shoulder and back neck. When he turned to look, he found that the black cat behind him was holding a meat in his mouth, and then raised his head to chew twice. Then he swallowed it. The blood and food aroused the black cat's ferocity even more. After swallowing the meat, the black cat immediately launched an offensive. After a short while, Wu Yangfeng was already and crumbling. At this time, Wu Yangfeng was quite miserable. The clothes all over his body had already become rags and barely hung on his body. There were deep bone wounds on his arms, thighs, front chest, and back. The left cheek was scratched. Take one, and the 2 rows of teeth are directly exposed. That is to say, the nature of the black cat is still there. He is treated as a mouse to play, so he did not kill him directly, but every time he attacked it would grab a piece of flesh and blood, and then eat it in front of him. Otherwise I am afraid Wu Yangfeng had long since become a corpse waiting for the corpse to change. Wu Yangfeng reluctantly grasped the longbow at this time. Every time the black cat rushed up, he would symbolically raise the bow to cover it, and the arrow in his right hand had long been lost, and the quiver behind it was also scratched by the black cat and flew aside. The black cat seems to be very happy because it has been kept in that small room for too long, but even if it only grabs a small piece of meat every time, it loses a lot of blood due to excessive wounds. Wu Yangfeng has been dizzy, as if he might fall down at any time. After another 2 rounds of attacks, the black cat looked at the pale Wu Yangfeng as if he suddenly lost his interest in playing, so he ate a piece of meat in his mouth and twisted his body on the ground and opened his mouth, as if it was telling Wu Yangfeng that it was ready to make the final blow. Meow. With this meowing, the black cat rushed up again, only this time its claws were caught directly against Wu Yangfeng's eyes, and Wu Yangfeng still raised his longbow to cover it weakly like the previous few times. The black cat hooked his right paw on the longbow, and his body continued to fly towards Wu Yangfeng. At this time, Wu Yangfeng suddenly deflected the longbow in his hand, and then swiped it to the right. The bowstring of the longbow immediately strangled the black cat's neck. The black cat who was in midair instantly lost his balance, struggling towards Wu Yang. The right side of the wind flew out diagonally. Wu Yangfeng hit the black cat's head with a punch. When he was some distance away from the black cat, his fist suddenly changed a posture, and a dagger appeared out of thin air. It was Apocalypse. The tip of the dagger was in the black cat's pupils. Instantly zoomed in, no matter how smart it was, it couldn't understand why this weapon that had originally made it a little scared suddenly appeared in front of its own eyes. But it doesn't need to think about it anymore, because the dagger almost touched it the moment it appeared, so the black cat was pierced into its head without any reaction time, and a screaming scream sounded. The 2 fronts of the black cat, the claws slammed on Wu Yangfeng's hand holding Tiankai, and the sharp nails sank deeply into the flesh, even piercing his palm. Only in the next moment, the black cat's strength disappeared, and his body was hung on the dagger, because the Apocalypse had already swallowed all the essence in its brain. Seeing that he finally successfully pierced the black cat's head, Wu Yangfeng heaved a sigh of relief. He wanted to let the dagger appear in the black cat's head directly, but was told by the Apocalypse that it would not work. Appears in the place closest to its vitality. After killing the black cat, Wu Yangfeng could no longer support him, and his body collapsed to the ground. At this time, his whole body began to become numb. Wu Yangfeng was familiar with this feeling. It was after his leg was bitten. Such. Apocalypse, how many energy points do I need to heal me? Wu Yangfeng said weakly. At this time, he had forgotten to communicate mentally. He just wanted to know if he could survive. The level of the virus carried by this creature is too high and cannot be treated temporarily. Apocalypse needs to be upgraded. Apocalypse's answer made Wu Yangfeng's heart instantly drop to the freezing point. How can you upgrade? Wu Yangfeng slightly had some expectation. Apocalypse upgrade first requires the level of the Apocalypse Hunter to reach the 2nd level, that is, the 2nd order evolutionary, and then consume 20,000 energy points to upgrade to the 2nd level Apocalypse. Apocalypse said 2 conditions that made Wu Yangfeng completely desperate. Can I use the evolution fluid to be immune to this cat's virus? Wu Yangfeng suddenly remembered that he seemed to have heard the 1st order evolutionary talk about the virus that he was immune to rogue zombies, even if he was bitten. No, the level of this cat should be equivalent to the 2nd order evolutionary, and its virus 1st order evolutionary cannot be immune. Tiankai ruthlessly shattered Wu Yangfeng's last glimmer of hope. Haha! Still can't get rid of this fate. Wu Yangfeng lay down and said softly, looking at the dome of the church. The level of the material extracted from this cat's body is too high. If it is a second-order apocalypse, it should be able to synthesize a second-order evolution liquid, but now the hunter of the apocalypse is in danger. It is recommended to synthesize a first-order evolution liquid, which is synthesized from the substance in the organism. The evolution fluid can be immune to the organism's virus. Tian Kai said again. I'm going. Then you slap your hair? It will be synthesized right away. Wu Yangfeng didn't know where the strength came from, and suddenly sat up. If he couldn't stand up, he really wanted to jump up and scold Apocalypse. There is no way. Say it earlier, tell me what you can't do, I will be scared to death by you. Received. Evolution liquid is being synthesized. 2 copies of evolution liquid are successfully synthesized. Testing is completed, all applicable, please use it as soon as possible to achieve the best results. Apocalypse's voice sounded. Wu Yangfeng immediately opened the Apocalypse space and took out the 2 golden vials inside, drink both. Yes, the 2 evolution fluids are both in agile direction, and they are extracted from the same creature, so there is no conflict. Because the virus level is too high, Apocalypse still needs to cooperate in the process of your evolution, please as soon as possible. Use. Tian Kai's answer made Wu Yangfeng's spirits refreshed. Looking at the 2 vials in his hand, Wu Yangfeng immediately opened them without saying a word, and then poured them into their mouths together. Inside the vial was a slightly viscous golden yellow liquid. With Wu Yangfeng's movements, all the liquid in the vial passed away. All flowed into his mouth, and there was no trace of it left in the bottle. After drinking 2 bottles of evolution liquid, Wu Yangfeng threw the vial away, and then lay there waiting quietly. As for the safety of this place, he had no time to take care of it. After drinking the evolution liquid, Wu Yangfeng suddenly felt a warm feeling flowing to his abdomen, and then his stomach rumbling. He suddenly remembered that he hadn't eaten for a long time, and remembered the family surrounding him before the end of the world. The scene of eating together, thinking of the smell of the food my mother cooked, thinking of. It was really unlucky yesterday. If I had a doomsday trial, I would be able to win it. Bah! Even if you learn doomsday judgment, it's useless, I'm carrying a black dragon. Do you understand the immune? What you just said was the doomsday judgment? Yet. Uncle. Do you also know the doomsday judgment? I know. But I don't know if we are talking about one. What do you mean by doomsday judgment? It's just a lot of fireballs falling from the sky and hitting the ground heavily. The kind of magic that can kill all creatures is called doomsday judgment. That's it. Then we are talking about the same doomsday judgment. Really? Uncle. You also play heroes? You have seen this magic on your computer, right? Isn't it pretty gorgeous? It's spectacular. Gorgeous? Spectacular? No. Uncle doesn't think this magic has any beauty, because it brings disaster, this doomsday judgment. Uncle did not see it, but experienced it. Haha. Uncle bragging. Uncle didn't brag, maybe you will experience it later. The dark clouds cleared, and the sun shone from the dome, bathing on the cross in the brilliance. He still stared at the world with a compassionate expression. In front of him, a young man in ragged clothes and scars was quiet. Lying on the ground, as if falling asleep, with a smile on the corners of his mouth, with his right hand still holding a dead cat. Chapter 8 Pastors don't keep cats. Successful evolution. The agility of the evolvers has been greatly increased, the strength increased, the physical strength increased, and the self-recovery ability increased. Evolution level, 1 type, agile ability 1, wind, effect, passively increase the evolver's own agility. The increase is related to the evolver's ability. The current increase is 62%. Active use can instantly increase its speed. It lasts for 1 minute. The speed increase is related to the evolver's ability. Ability is related, and the current increase is 220%. Ability 2, Sky Eye, Effect, zoom in the distant field of vision. The distance is related to the evolutionary ability, ignore the influence of darkness, and it will be invalid under completely no light conditions. I don't know how long it took, Yang Feng finally woke up, and while he was sober, a lot of information poured into his mind. Successful? I'm already an evolutionary. Yang Feng jumped up suddenly, feeling the changes in his body, and at the same time carefully passed the information he had just received. Bei Feng. Tianyan, unexpectedly. The child has 2 abilities. But what is the purpose of this heavenly eye? What is the failure in the absence of light? Yang Feng felt a little confused. Just give it a try. He was just about to experiment with his newly acquired ability, and suddenly felt that there seemed to be something on his right hand, so he subconsciously took it before his eyes and wanted to see it clearly. Wow! Yang Feng spit out on the chair of the church. What he was holding was the black cat that almost killed him, and it was already highly decomposed. It was covered with maggots and he was carrying his. There were also maggots crawling everywhere on the hands and arms. Fuck! I don't know if I crawled into my mouth when I was in a coma. Yang Feng quickly forbidden himself to think about it anymore, otherwise he was afraid of throwing up his intestines. After vomiting, I looked up and just saw the statue of on the cross. Sorry, I didn't want it. I didn't hold it back for a while. This cat will make me sick when it dies. As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Feng couldn't help but stunned. How long did I slept? Why did the cat rot like this? He quickly called the apocalypse in his heart. Apocalypse? How long have I slept? 12 days. Tian Kai's answer was short, but Yang Feng was not lightly scared. 12 days? How could it be so long? Because the material level of the synthetic evolution liquid is very high, the effect of the evolution liquid should also be very good, and because you are using 2 together and repairing your body, this time is normal. Tian Kai's explanation is very good. Detailed. You are already an evolutionary now, and your body is not only fully recovered, but also strengthened. You feel good, right? Only then did Yang Feng remember that there was an increase in body strength in the message just now. He tore off all the rags on his body a few times, and looked down at his bare body. The upper body of the inverted triangle, the abdomen with tortoiseshell pattern, and the muscles of the whole body, although not as high as a bodybuilder, are sharp and angular, making his originally slightly thin body very strong. Yang Feng nodded in satisfaction and put on a few poses at random, but found that he was still naked. Little Yang Feng was swinging around leisurely with his movements, sweating profusely. Wandering around, he saw the room where the black cat was closed, quickly walked over, pushed the half-opened door aside. A white bone appeared in front of him, and beside the white bone there was another that had been torn apart. The priest's robe and a broken cross necklace. After taking a look, Yang Feng stopped paying attention. He walked to the room and found some clothes that fit on him and then prepared to leave. When passing by the priest's skeleton, Yang Feng looked down at the skeleton. The cross in the middle murmured, "It seems that it is better to be a pastor without raising cats." Meow. As if responding to Yang Feng's words, a meow rang from behind him as soon as his voice fell. Yang Feng was shocked, and without even thinking about it, he activated the power he had just acquired. Hey 8. His speed instantly increased by 220%, his figure disappeared in a flash, and his figure appeared outside the church door in the next moment. This can't be blamed on his courage. If anyone's flesh is torn off by a cat by 1/5 and eaten on the spot, he will inevitably have a psychological shadow. Moreover, Yang Feng was in a narrower space just now. If a black cat Yang Feng appears again, it will undoubtedly die. He knew in his heart that the black cat before he killed completely relied on the characteristics of apocalypse that can appear directly in his hands, and the black cat played against him with a playful mentality, and this was the only way to succeed in a single blow. If the black cat came up and killed him, Wu Yangfeng would have been no different from the priest. After leaving the church, Wu Yangfeng turned back and looked at the room. His eyes instantly turned blood red. He actually activated the celestial eye ability. Suddenly, he was like standing at the door of that small room, seeing the situation in the room clearly. Shoo! It's just that because of the angle, he can only see a part of the room, and there is nothing notable in this part. Wu Yangfeng thought for a while and stepped into the church again after gritting his teeth. He also understands that this is a bit risky, but now the gale power has a duration of more than 40 seconds. If another cat really appears, it may not be enough to fight, there should be no problem with running away, and Wu Yangfeng remembered that he was lying in it for 12. If the cat didn't come out, it is very likely that the cat is trapped. The most important point is that now Wu Yangfeng looks very immature when recalling the cat cry just now, it should be a kitten. After entering the church, Wu Yangfeng came to the door of the room in a flash. The gust of time is limited and he can't waste it. The probe looked at the room and there was nothing unusual. Wu Yangfeng turned to the single person in the room. On the bed, the facilities in this room are very simple, at a glance. The only possible problem is under the bed. Wu Yangfeng took off the longbow on his back, gently lifted the bed sheet with his bow, and then slowly leaned down and looked under the bed. A pure white little milk cat was lying under the bed and was sleeping. It seems that he should have eaten a fish in a dream just now, so he said a dream talk, but didn't want to scare Wu Yangfeng to use even abilities. Came out. Wu Yangfeng slowly opened the bed sheet, and took a closer look at this little milk cat. It should be just recently born. Wu Yangfeng wondered, the cat's pregnancy period is only 2 months, and it has been more than half a year since the end of the world. Now, I turned my head and looked around and found that there was a vent in the upper right corner of the room, and the baffle of the vent had been destroyed. Wu Yangfeng suddenly realized that this cat was not raised by this priest, but an outsider. It should be the cat who was about to give birth, so he regarded this place as a delivery room, and he just accidentally broke into it. When you enter, you are naturally treated as an enemy by this black cat. Wu Yangfeng stretched out his hand and gently touched the little milk cat. The little milk cat made a weak cry but made no other movements. That's right. This little guy has been hungry for more than 10 days, he should be starving to death. Wu Yangfeng simply fished out the little milk cat with his hands, and then sat down on the bed, placing the little milk cat in his palm. The small milk cat's thin body curled up in his palm, like a small snowball. The biochemical beast was found. Testing. After the test is completed, this creature is a second-order biochemical beast. It is recommended to swallow it to synthesize the second-order evolution liquid. Apocalypse's voice suddenly came. Wu Yangfeng was taken aback and looked at the little milk cat in his palm. He knew the meaning of apocalypse. Inserting the apocalypse into the head of the little milk cat would naturally complete the swallowing. If you are lucky, the evolution fluid that is combined is suitable for you. If you can become a Tier 2 evolver, you will not be far from the apocalypse upgrade. But Wu Yangfeng looked at the little milk cat in his palm but couldn't make up his mind. He used his hands to hold the little milk cat in front of his eyes, and raised the little milk cat's head. The little milk cat's eyes had not opened yet, and his nose after twitching twice, he stuck out his little pink tongue and made a few taps on the tip of Wu Yangfeng's nose, making a faint cry in his mouth. Apocalypse! Can you save it? Wu Yangfeng asked dazedly, looking at the little milk cat. Yes. Use your blood. Tiankai's answer gave Wu Yangfeng a sigh of relief. He put the little milk cat on his chest with his arms, and then made a small cut on his left hand with Tiankai, and then put the wound on the little milk cat's mouth. The little milk cat refreshed and opened his mouth on Wu Yangfeng's wound. After sucking, the little milk cat was probably full after sucking it for a while, and then curled up in the palm of Wu Yangfeng's palm again to sleep. Wu Yangfeng picked up a small backpack on the bed, stuffed 2 soft clothes indiscriminately, and gently put the little milk cat in, then put the small backpack on his chest, and finally left after looking at the room. Here. When he walked out of the church, Wu Yangfeng's speed suddenly accelerated. Like a gust of wind, he rushed from left to right in Wu village, and in a moment he had already stepped on the whole Wu village. Afterwards, Wu Yangfeng stood on the other side of Wu village, opened his bow and set arrows. His arms moved rapidly, pulling out numerous phantoms in the sunlight. Hu! Whoosh! All the 25 arrows flew out in an instant, and they were formed. A cluster of arrows rained. Opposite him far away, the plaque on the archway at the entrance of the village 200 meters away crashed down in the rain of arrows. The entire plaque was already like a hedgehog, with many of the 25 arrows nailed to it. Swipe Wu Yangfeng's figure flashed, and he flew towards the falling plaque, and then kicked the plaque that hadn't landed to pieces. Hey! The effect is not bad. Wu Yangfeng gasped slightly. He was just getting familiar with his body and abilities. He had just become an evolutionary. He was not yet familiar with his body and couldn't fully control his power. Now he is almost familiar with his body, even after the gust of wind, he still can't fully adapt. Just like a novice driving F1, he can't control such a high speed. It's just that this can't be done overnight, because the ability of He 8 cannot be activated all the time, which consumes a lot of physical strength. Wu Yangfeng estimates that if he activates it twice in a battle, he will completely lose his combat power when the effect of the wind is over. So I can only gradually become familiar with it in the future. After retracting the arrow on the plaque, Wu Yangfeng opened the backpack on his chest and looked at the sleeping little milk cat, then raised his head and looked into the distance with a smile. The end of the dog day. I'm back. Chapter 9 Zombie Tide in small town. Whether it is before the end of the world or after the end of the world, the only thing in common is that the weather has always changed when it changes. But this does not affect Wu Yangfeng's mood in the slightest. Although he is still moving forward calmly as before, but his eyes are no longer looking straight into the distance, as if he wants to see through the future, because he is sure his future, created by him. Now his first goal is to go to a town that their team has explored before, Jiangguan Town. Jiangguan Town was not a well-known tourist attraction before the end of the world, and it was also regarded as an economic pillar of their small city. But after they came here for the first time, they just looked far away and left. Because the number of zombies here is simply uncountable, the number of zombies in some places in the town is almost like the subway in the rush hour, densely packed together. If you are bitten by a zombie in other places, you may worry that you will become a zombie, but you don't have to worry about it here, because you won't even have a bone left. After leaving here, their captain, level 3 fortifier Lu Feng, the middle-aged man with a sense of justice, once told them never to approach this place in the future, and then he simply marked it as a restricted area and placed it on their map. A big skeleton is drawn in this position. Of course, Wu Yangfeng's current goal is not the zombies in the town. He will only hit those zombies unless his brain gets flooded. His goal is the rest station 2 kilometers away from the town. When he came last time, he observed that there were about 500 zombies there. Although it was a bit more, it was basically not difficult for him now. Moreover, the vehicles, fuel, and food in the rest station are now in short supply. The resources can be said to be everything. Wu Yangfeng is going to get a car there and get some supplies back. No one in his team knows that he was bitten. He left the team quietly. He must return to the team now. It's easy to get some supplies and go back. Because he still doesn't want to expose his apocalypse, not just now, but forever. Wu Yangfeng is advancing towards the goal with a cheerful pace. Now his speed is more than twice as fast as before. Although the passiveness of Haifeng means that it only increases the agility of the evolver by 62%, the evolver's the strength of the body must be at least twice that of the strengthener. This is Wu Yangfeng's own experience. He is certain that if the previous one and the current one are confronted, he can solve the battle within 10 seconds without using abilities and weapons. This is the terrifying part of the evolutionary. But after arriving near the target location, Wu Yangfeng's expression began to become dignified. Because of the ability Sky Eye, Wu Yangfeng had discovered from a long distance that his target location inside the rest station next to the highway there wasn't even a single zombie, and it was empty and strange. Wu Yangfeng climbed to a huge billboard erected next to the highway, and searched it carefully again, but found nothing. The rest station was lifeless except for the occasional mouse running by. It's not the captain who have cleaned up here, right? Wu Yangfeng was a little confused, but in a blink of an eye he denied his idea, because the armored patrol car in the rest station was still parked there. If it was his team, it would be here. If you clean it up, those guys will never let this baby go. This vehicle is a special forces vehicle for the military. It is a mobile fortress designed specifically for urban anti-terrorism. The name is Hurricane. It is a representative of the country's highest technology before the end of the world. Among other things, the light kinetic energy storage silent engine it uses seems to be specially prepared for this end of the world. As long as there is light, it can automatically store energy and provide power for itself, as long as it is not in the North and South Poles. Where there will be extreme nights, this car is a perpetual motion machine. Wu Yangfeng stepped off the billboard, and then tried to keep as quiet as possible and approached the rest station. After ensuring safety, his first target was the car. As a soldier, he knew that when he said it was armor, it should be called fake. After all, this kind of car is not designed for battlefields. It can only withstand the attacks of ordinary guns and grenades, and it can be penetrated by a single RPG. It's armor, but zombies don't use RPG, right? When the armored patrol car was still some distance away, Wu Yangfeng heard the bang. Bang! Collision sound inside the car. Although this car was much smaller than the room in the church, it was dark due to Wu Yangfeng seemed more cautious about the cat's lesson. After tiptoe approaching, he watched left and right. After confirming that there was no danger, he reached out and held the handle and pressed it down bit by bit. When he felt pressed to the bottom, Wu Yangfeng slammed the door, and then his body leaped back. When it was midair, the bow was already drawn to the inside of the carriage. What surprised Wu Yangfeng was that there were zombies in the carriage, and there were more than one, and what he didn't expect was, when the door of the carriage was opened, these zombies in camouflage combat uniforms fell off the carriage one after another. Then got up and walked in the direction of Jianguan town. Wu Yangfeng was stunned as he watched these dozen or so zombies pass by one, completely turning a blind eye to his life-bearing food. Wu Yangfeng didn't wake up until they all passed in front of Wu Yangfeng. He was simply inexplicable. Are these guys going vegetarian? Or do they have a bad cold collectively? Or is it because I haven't bathed for a long time? At this moment, Wu Yangfeng felt very hurt, and finally became an evolutionary. He just wanted to show off his power but found that his enemies pretended not to see him. Do I have to take the initiative to provoke him? Wu Yangfeng frowned and put away his bow and arrows. He felt that there must be a problem here. He chased up and killed these fully equipped zombies one by one, then unloaded all their equipment and ammunition and threw them into the carriage, although it was too big. Some are thermal weapons, but there is always no harm in keeping them. The post-apocalyptic enhancers basically stay away from hot weapons. Everyone knows that when you shoot a zombie, your gunshots will often attract multiple zombies. However, after all, there are only a very small number of enhancers. Ordinary people still use hot weapons to deal with zombies. Close combat with cold weapons is too dangerous for ordinary people. In their camp, a pistol full of magazines is enough. You can change 2 boxes of instant noodles, and 1 pack of instant noodles. Most of the women in the camp will spend the night with you for this. People who have never experienced hunger will never experience that kind of pain. When the human body reaches its limit, a bowl of rice and a bottle of water can make you give up everything: dignity, personality, face, maybe also includes honor. After Wu Yangfeng confirmed the safety of the car, he looked at the cab with a probe. The cab was empty and the key was still hung on it. It seemed that the zombies who had just passed by also included the driver. Without saying anything, he closed the car door and put himself in a complete set of camouflage combat uniforms from the inside to the outside, and then put all the other equipment and ammunition into his apocalypse space, even the combat uniforms he did not let go. Then I entered the cab and tried to start the car. It was confirmed that the car was in good condition, so I drove the car to the supermarket at the rest stop, jumped out of the car and went in for a search. First filled up the remaining space in the apocalyptic space, and then loaded the car until the carriage was so full that it couldn't fit anything anymore before we stopped. After doing all this, Yang Feng started the car and left silently. Only less than 2 minutes after driving out, Yang Feng suddenly turned around and drove in the direction of the rest area. It was not that he lost his things, but that he always felt that it's not quite right. The scene of those zombies walking in front of him has been playing back in front of his eyes. When he arrived near the rest area, Yang Feng did not stop, but continued to drive forward. In front of him was Jianguan Town. On the way to Jianguan Town, Yang Feng had been vigilantly paying attention to the surroundings, but he did not find anything until he saw a group of zombies marching in the direction of Jianguan Town. A group of about 15 or 6 zombies were swaying towards Jianguan Town, while Yang Feng looked at them amusedly. "Are you going to gather in an emergency?" Yang Feng lay on the steering wheel and looked at these zombies boredly. He tried to pass them just now, honking the horn in front of them, spitting, and even when he walked past them with his hands on his back, but these zombies were totally stubborn. "On the way?" "Yes, it is." Yang Feng could only use the word "on the road." For the first time, he discovered that the zombies would insist on moving in one direction as if they had a goal, and these zombies were still the lowest level wanderers. Why are they called wanderers? Because they will always wander aimlessly, but when these wanderers have their own destination, are they still wanderers? After following for nearly an hour, Yang Feng finally understood the destination of these wanderers, because through the eyes of the sky, he had already seen the crowd of zombies in front of him, but these zombies did not come in his direction. These zombies, the destination all are Jianguan Town. Yang Feng stopped the car silently, raised the observation deck on the patrol car to the highest level, then climbed up, opened the sky eye to observe for a while, and then returned to the cab, looking at the steering wheel with a dull expression. The joy of previous evolution has disappeared without a trace. Because of the sky eye, his field of view is wider than that of a high-power telescope, but now Yang Feng would rather not have this ability. He just saw that zombies gathered from all directions in the center of Jianguan Town. This small town was already a world of zombies. He didn't know the specific number of zombies. He only knew that even if he was himself, if he dared to rush in, he did not know the specific number of zombies. There must be no return. It was not this that shocked him the most. It was that he saw the center of the zombie group, where there was an empty space. The zombies were able to leave a space in the center of the corpse wave. The empty space was all strengthened zombies, and strengthened zombies. Surrounded by a zombie type that Yang Feng has never seen before. Chapter 10 Mutant Zombie. Dark blue skin, sharp fangs, strong limbs, sharp nails, but these, none of these, are the reasons that make Yang Feng frighten. It is the zombie's eyes that really make Yang Feng frighten. Due to the existence of the sky eye, Yang Feng could clearly see the zombie. When Yang Feng was observing the zombie kept looking around, as if a king was inspecting his territory. From time to time, it would open its mouth and roar, as if screaming at those zombies, and every time he spoke, the enhanced zombies around it would act, and some would jump into the group of zombies and throw out a few wanderers. Yang Feng was shocked in his heart, but the zombie felt as if he was feeling, turning his head to look in the direction of Yang Feng. When Yang Feng and the zombie looked at each other, he truly felt a kind of fear from his heart. What kind of look is that? Fierce? Cruel? Indifferent? Still violent? Yang Feng can't say it, but he can be sure of one thing: those eyes shouldn't belong to zombies, they definitely belong to intelligent creatures. When Yu Yangfeng looked at it, he even felt that it was a human being, and one looked strange. Of humans. Maybe the zombie didn't find anything, so it didn't pay attention to it after watching it for a while. When it turned its head and turned back, Wu Yangfeng clearly saw a trace of doubt in its eyes. What is this special thing? Does he still maintain the human mind? Wu Yangfeng cursed, while thinking of the zombie experiment that he wanted to conduct before. Slowly stopping the car, Wu Yangfeng lay on the steering wheel and was silent for a long time. He remembered that the first-order evolutionary who had been to his camp before had said that there was a kind of zombie that they called mutant zombies. This kind of zombie had certain characteristics. Wisdom, but also able to command other low-level zombies, including strengthening zombies. This kind of zombies is the most terrifying, because it is equivalent to the commander of the zombies. Once the zombies are commanded to act in a unified manner, it is definitely not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. A zombie army with a command is compared to a normal army. It is even more terrible, because zombies have no morale. They are not afraid of death or pain. They only know that they obey the order and move forward. Even if only one of them is left dead, they will stubbornly move forward. It seems that the zombie should be the mutant zombie, he said. Didn't that guy say that only some first-tier cities have discovered this kind of mutant zombie? How come such terrible creatures will appear in the poor places where you are in a third-tier city where you barely pass? The most important thing is, what does it do to gather so many zombies? Wu Yangfeng tried to guess the purpose of the mutant zombie gathering so many zombies. He thought of many possibilities, none of which was optimistic. He once wanted to go back and try to see if he could kill the zombie remotely. After hesitating for a long time, he gave up. It's not that he was afraid of death, but that he didn't know the strength of this zombie at all. With it, he might bring huge disasters to the survival camps near Jianguan town. After thinking about it, Wu Yangfeng finally decided to go back to his camp first, round with the team, and then start the camp to announce the existence of this mutant zombie, so that the survivors in other camps can be prepared. After making the decision, Wu Yangfeng stepped on the accelerator and drove towards his camp. The armored car rushed forward, but Wu Yangfeng's mood became heavier and heavier. After becoming an evolutionary, he felt his own powerlessness for the first time. He is indeed very strong now, but no matter how strong he is also a human being. His strength is always used up. Unlike zombies, they are never tireless. As long as there is the temptation of food, they can chase forever until the end of the world. Yep. Sorry, it seems to be the end of the world now. After the armored vehicle drove for a while, Wu Yangfeng suddenly remembered something. The nearest survival camp to Jianguan town was where he had been until the specific location, because he had only passed there some time ago, and it was the camp he had saved. Wu Yangfeng chuckled softly and secretly said, "Good luck to you." Then he continued his journey, but there was always a face lingering in front of him, the one who stood up when he was fighting alone, and then ran around him while yelling, leading the zombies surrounding him halfway. Circling around, the middle-aged brawny man who crashed down after exhaustion. I saved him, and he came to save me again, but I was saved again, he should owe me. So. Wu Yangfeng tried to find a reason to comfort himself, but always felt that something was wrong. Forget it. If such a fool dies, there may be no such person in the world. Anyway, song the way, just take him by the way. When passing a small road, Wu Yangfeng finally did it. Decided, he gritted his teeth, turned the steering wheel, and the armored car drove into that path. In the survival camp where Wu Yangfeng is going, a dark man in his 40s is standing at the door of the survival camp with a gloomy expression. Fatty Sun is standing carefully behind him, and the other survivors are silent. Doing his own work, no one dared to make a sound, for fear that he would accidentally provoke the dark man. This dark man is the actual controller of this survival camp, First Order Enhancer Ho Kun. When he returned to the camp 10 days ago with his expedition team, he was pleasantly surprised to find that there were more than 200 more in the camp. The corpse of a zombie. Although the corpses of these zombies belong to the lowest level wanderers, and there is not even a strengthened zombie, that is also a big gain. If you use it all for one person, there should be an extra booster in the camp. But before he was happy, he learned that his brother did not stay in the camp, but went out alone. Hokun couldn't help being furious when he heard the news. Although his brother is not a child, he is not the same now. The world of order? Now there are groups of zombies everywhere, even if he, the evolutionary person, can't guarantee his safety when he goes out alone, let alone his brother Ho Xiao is just an ordinary person. Therefore, it immediately slapped Fatty Sun with a scolding, and Fatty Sun was aggrieved by saying that his younger brother took a fancy to the equipment of an outsider and insisted on following it out. It was useless to persuade him. The gun was given to him. The truth is that Fatty Sun never dared to say it. Looking at Hokun's current state, if he dared to say that he sent the thin monkey out, Hokun would immediately tear him up, and he cursed the thin monkey waste, even one. The zombies couldn't figure it out, and they accompanied Hokun with a smile. Hokun didn't have time to talk nonsense with Fatty Sunday. After asking the direction where the skinny monkey was leaving, he led his expedition team to find the skinny monkey. Seeing Hokun and the others leaving, Fatty Sun wiped the cold sweat from his head. He did not dare to point in random directions, because many people in the camp had seen the monkey leaving, so he could only secretly pray for the death of the thin monkey. Outside, because the skinny monkey does not die, he will die. As for Hokun, Fatty Sun didn't want him to die too, because a camp without a protector would not survive long. Fortunately, Fatty Sun's prayers worked. Unfortunately, the skinny monkey died. Hokun and the others came back with the body of the skinny monkey. Fortunately, Fatty Sun pointed at the skinny monkey's forehead with an angry face. Going up the hole pierced by the sharp object, he said, "That guy. He used the bow and arrow. He must have killed Brother Ho." His face was full of endless sadness, as if his father was dead. Fortunately his father was already dead. After burying Ho Xiao, Hokun gathered all the people in the camp and took a closer look at what happened at the time. When he learned that the other party was only a young man in his early 20s, he killed it by himself. When there were more than 200 zombies, he couldn't help taking a breath. From the descriptions of everyone, he could be sure that the young man was a member of the expedition team at the Taikang Town survival camp not far from here, the archer known as the Lunatic, and the second-order enhancer. Hokun frowned. If it were him, it would be difficult to avenge his younger brother. The Taikang survival camp is much larger and more powerful than they are here. Their camp leader is a three-pointed leader. Level enhancer. After repeatedly asking a lot of details at the time, Hokun waved his hand to signal the crowd to disperse, and then sat alone on the fence and began to meditate. After an entire hour passed, he stood up and dropped the cigarette in his hand fiercely. "Hey! No matter what, killing my brother will cost him." At this moment, a little flat-headed man in his 30s ran over and shouted, "Kun! Brother Kun! Isn't something right? What's wrong? Say it! What's the panic?" Hokun frowned and shouted, "Brother Kun! Those zombies, most of the zombies' heads are empty, and more than 200 zombies only got 36 potions of strengthening liquid." Xiaopingtu reported. It's impossible. Get everyone together." Hokun was furious when he heard it. "I want to see. Who is playing tricks for Lao Tzu?" After a while, all the people in the camp gathered again and stood in front of Hokun. Hokun looked at these guys with a sullen look. Although he killed none of the zombies, in his opinion, since this camp is under his control, everything in the camp should be controlled by him. Now someone steals, of course he found out his own things, and then severely taught this brazen traitor. But after tossing for a long time, after searching the entire camp inside and out several times, Ho Kun didn't find a drop of strengthening liquid. If someone in the camp stole it, it would be impossible to find it out. Ho Kun called Lu Jiang to the front and asked again about the details of when Wu Yangfeng killed the zombies, but Lu Jiang's answer was that he was immersed in running at the time and didn't even remember the appearance of Wu Yangfeng. Later, he passed out and waited. When he woke up, Wu Yangfeng had already left. Ho Kun was helpless, so he had to let Lu Jiang leave. Looking at Lu Jiang's back, he squinted his eyes slightly. It looks like that kid should be doing the trick. Hey. That's okay. I will go to your camp to help you prepare the case first. I will slowly settle the account with you later.